Hello, good morning and welcome to New Forest Morphs. I've just got back from a mini vacation, so I hope everyone's doing well. It's good to be back. The snake's all doing pretty good here. Jaz's been looking after them while I've been gone, and he's done a great job keeping them nice and clean, keeping them nice and healthy. So I want to pay a big thank you to Jared for taking care of those all by himself. Jared's having a resting period with his family. There is a little bit of a health issue in his family, so our prayers are with him and his family, and hopefully he'll be able to rejoin us a bit later. So today we're going to be talking about the mentors, and the big question really is, how important is it to have at least one mentor in this hobby? So let me just explain what happened to us. I mean, Jared was keeping ball pythons about 2 years before I started keeping them, so he's been keeping them for 4 years. I've been keeping them for a couple of years, and Jared was really my first mentor from a son to father, and he was teaching me how to handle them, teaching me how to feed them, teaching me how to clean them, teaching me how to provide the husbandry. And I was very grateful to have a son that had some experience, because if I'd have started on my own, I think I would have been pretty much lost. So I think you can't underestimate the value of a mentor. And I think we tend to naturally move and gravitate towards people that we find helpful in the hobby. So another example of an early mentor that I had was a friend called Alan, who's based in the Southampton region, been keeping snakes for 10 years, hugely powerful reputation locally, very reliable and deeply respected within the industry. So when we were buying our snakes and our collection, Emily and I went up to his facility and got to know Alan, and he opened up his facility to us, and I was deeply impressed with what he was doing there. And it was my first real time that I got introduced into a quite large facility. And I thought to myself, wow, that's really quite inspiring, just seeing how Alan was running his ship and all the different methods he was having. He had a double door system coming into the facility, he had fresh air being blown in, and he had heated air going in, so that when you went through the second door, the ambient temperature wouldn't take a huge drop. He made sure he had good air circulation and good size rubs for his animals, and I thought, this is a really professional setup. I was really quite impressed. And I think that's when things happen very naturally. You kind of like build up a friendship, and you don't go out to choose a mentor, and the mentor doesn't necessarily go out to choose you. I think it's one of these very natural processes, and I think you kind of feed off each other in the sense that I had lots of questions I'd ask Alan about keeping them, which was supplement the information that Jazz given me, and I was starting to get a better picture of the hobby. And when I started getting our first clutches, Alan was very supportive, very thumbs up and encouraging, to say well done for doing so well in your first season. I think I had 10 clutches in my first year, which is going some. And I learned an awful lot from that, and we've got some wonderful animals as a result. But I think if I'd have gone into it on my own, I would have felt really quite hesitant and kind of shy. While this was going on, Richard was developing his channel on Predator BP. And so I was very much relying on YouTubers to help me with my further gaining of knowledge. And I think what I'm saying to people out there that maybe don't have a connection with a close friend in the hobby is another technique for allowing mentors to mentor us is to look at their material, digest, learn from their experiences, and in a way you've almost got a surrogate mentor who's not necessarily giving you the full mentoring, but he's doing enough, or she's doing enough, just to share information that you can gather, and then they can mentor you indirectly, if you see what I'm saying. So I think anyone that's feeling a little bit lonely and isolated in the hobby, not to feel that way, because YouTube's a wonderful place, and obviously there's a lot of misinformation out there as well, so you have to be very selective as to who you follow and who you really listen to. And we do all make mistakes, and we are going to make mistakes, and that's part of the mentoring process, is that a good mentor will lift you and inspire you to learn from your mistakes, but he or she will not give you instructions, but he'll guide and advise and counsel and share information freely with no strings attached, just so that we can then maybe make adjustments to get better at the hobby. And I find that's a very natural process. So I found Richard very helpful, because he was teaching us lots of techniques, and I was just absorbing all his videos. Probably watched about 200 or 300 videos in about a year, just going all through the backlog. And I just learnt so much from Richard, and I want to thank Richard for that. And then Richard introduced me to Rob, who's got a lot of experience as well, and Rob was then focusing on the scientific side, which really interested me, and I was curious to see his detail of his breeding series because I was getting into breeding. So I think Rob has been helping us for a good 18 months now to kind of understand a bit more about the breeding cycles and the breeding techniques and the keeping and husbandry, and that was very valuable to us in terms of growing and learning, and particularly the genetics on breeding was very helpful indeed. Rob would introduce us to things like the rhythm of the room, which we now adopt very much into our breeding cycle. He would then talk us through getting our humidity right, using ambient humidity rather than spraying down as an example of how a mentor can help us. Another example would be how to assist feed. Be patient with your assist feeding, not rush into it. And other things like just really basic things that crop up during the course of keeping your collection that you want to really have someone who's got experience, maybe been through the experience, come out the other end, adjusted and tweaked their systems, and of course they would be mentored perhaps by other people. So you're gaining experience all the time, and as we gain experience, we like to share that experience with our viewers, and then that will be helpful for new people coming in. So it's almost like a feeding the community and helping each other and trying to troubleshoot problems together. So it doesn't have to be a lonely experience, it can be a lovely experience where you're building. And I've actually got several mentors, I don't have one mentor, and this is the other thing about the value of a mentor. Don't feel like you have to have just the one mentor guiding you through the process, because I think that each mentor will have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think you need to go to the mentor that you feel would guide you in a particular area of the hobby. So I might have one on behaviour, I might have one on marketing, I might have one on the husbandry. So there could be a whole bunch of different people out there that you're kind of connected to who are guiding you through doing things correctly. So there's a couple of examples. Now, one of the classic examples, if you want to see a classic mentoring example, now not all of us have access to Justin Kobelka direct access. Now, if you look at the last 3 or 4 years and you study the relationship between Justin Kobelka and Miguel at Always Evolving Pythons, that relationship has grown over 3 or 4 years, and maybe it would have started with Miguel getting to know Justin, maybe giving him a call, wanting to buy some snakes, talking to him about how can I develop my facility, and Justin then perhaps saying at that point, well, you're buying some snakes from me, I want to be able to give you some support on that. So it's not just about selling the snake, it's about giving the support to the end customer, because we want our end customers to be successful because they're future customers and they can grow the hobby as well. So it's actually really, really important to cultivate a supportive and working relationship with all our customers, because Justin also buys from his customers as well. So he's not only doing it because he's got a natural love for the hobby and for people, he's also doing it because it makes good business sense. That you find that now, I think there was one this year where Miguel shared one of his breeder males with Justin on a loan basis. He agreed with Justin that he'd have first pick of the clutch, and Justin hit a really good odd and he got one fantastic snake out of that clutch, and he knew that Justin then realised that as part of taking that loan from Miguel, he had to give him the pick of the clutch, and he honoured that and was very honourable with that. But can you see that the full circle of love, it comes back, what goes out often comes back. And I think the more that we love and serve each other, the more we want to love and serve each other back. Although being a good mentor actually, in my opinion, requires no conditions and no strings attached. In other words, you would serve and love the person that you're trying to help, not expecting anything back in return. But in reality, mentors get a lot back in return. As I said, classic example with Justin and Miguel. Miguel's built up a lovely YouTube presence in 3 or 4 years. He's got over 100,000 subscribers. Justin's been running his YouTube channel for best part of 18 years, and he's got like, I think 60 or 70,000. And it's very interesting how someone coming into the hobby who's linked to Justin can develop a very strong business very quickly and a very strong social media presence, which I think for him works really well, because I think Miguel sells a lot of his snakes on YouTube. But I know they talk about it's not necessary to actually have a YouTube channel, it's not necessary to have a big social media presence, because a lot of very successful breeders work on a low-key basis, and it's the snakes themselves that sell themselves. And I think Justin was explaining that to us recently on a video where he was saying that not everyone feels comfortable in front of a camera. You don't have to be. All you have to do really is produce high quality snakes, and the snakes will sell themselves. So I think that's good advice. So I think the importance of having a mentor is essential, because it helps us to avoid lots of mistakes that would take maybe 5, 10, 15 years to go through and learn the hard way. So I always think that having someone that can guide us and help us to bring in preventative medicine when we need to, by actually avoiding the problem in the first place, can save a great deal of heartache and pain. And otherwise we tend to have a bit of a baptism of fire. Many of us have been through the mite situation in our early days, where you buy a snake from someone, you think it's clean, turns out to have mites, it goes into your collection, and you're spending 6 to 8 weeks trying to take care of the mites. And I think most people in the hobby have probably gone through that. So even though you're being mentored and guided how to avoid them, the reality is that these things do happen, and then you learn by going through the experience. And at that point, your mentor will guide you through and show you techniques of how to get rid of mites, how to get rid of other issues, diseases that may come in from imports or other snakes that you bring in, how to use various methods of protecting your collection. All these things are great because experienced breeders who've been there can guide us newcomers in. And I would say anyone out there that's thinking about getting into this hobby seriously in breeding is to watch quite a few good quality YouTube channels to get an idea of what's going on in the industry, but also try to cultivate a relationship with at least one highly respectable mentor that can guide you through some of the potential problems that can occur. It would be my advice. So what makes a good mentor, and what are the qualities that we're looking in there? So a mentor should be a guide, should inspire us. He should be willing, or she should be willing, to share knowledge and experience to help inspire us to be able to reach our goals. A mentor should help us through our problems. A mentor should also know when to hold back. Now this is an interesting one, because I do a lot of fishing guiding, do a lot of football coaching, and there's a couple of analogies I'd like to share with you. I mean, some of the best football players in the world have come with a non-coaching background, and therefore you could arguably say that in the early stages of what you're doing, particularly in the creative arts and particularly in sports, you often find that some of the best players, that played really good football. I mean, you think of Ronaldo, that was basically living in a very poor place. The original Ronaldo, who played for Brazil, he was playing football literally in the streets, dirty streets, and he was playing barefooted. He had no money to buy boots, he had very little, but eventually he was spotted by some of the up-and-coming teams, and they saw how good he was, and they took him on board, and then he started to get his formal coaching and development at a very late age. Now, there is an argument that says that you don't want to be putting anyone in a straitjacket when you are giving them advice. You want to give them the freedom to use their creative juices, but also you want to be able to make sure that they're guided to avoid some of the pitfalls that can happen to us. So it is a fine balance, and I think a good mentor will know when to hold back, when to give support, and I think that's a really important quality. And the other example, besides the footballing example, I think there was another example of, I was talking about me fishing. When I got into salmon fishing and fly fishing, I didn't have any formal lessons. No one taught me how to spey cast, which is a very technical technique that you can present a fly in front of you with trees and there might be like boulders and rocks behind you, and you're fishing with your chest waders in the river, and you want to cast a fly to your salmon. But if you did a back cast, there's nowhere for the fly to go because you've got trees and you've got rocks behind you. So what they teach us is they teach us how to spey cast, where you create loops in front of you and you use the momentum of the line to fire out the fly. And so I actually got into the hobby by being introduced by a few friends who I went out with them, and I watched what they were doing, and I couldn't get it to start with. But one of them took time to show me how to spey cast, and I eventually got it. And when I got it, it was a lovely feeling to know that you could spey cast. But I was got into fishing in a very unstructured way, and what I call not in a straitjacket, but learnt how to fly fish more naturally. And I think with me, in every aspect of my life, I love to be guided, but I also love to be able to work things out for myself. And therefore, when you're going fishing and you're guiding someone now, depending on the person I'm guiding will determine how much I give them. So, for example, if I want them to learn rivercraft and know where the fish will be, I might give them some pointers, but if they want to learn that for themselves, I won't give them too many pointers. I'll let them try to interpret the river, where the salmon could be and where they can present the fly. Others will need more guidance and maybe can't see it, and therefore you're going to teach them a technique of how to read the river. So there's lots of techniques that I adopt which are out of the box, and you'll find that in my channel, that I will be experimenting and trying methods that perhaps haven't necessarily been tried before. Some of them will be absolutely loopy and out of the box. Some of them might be quite effective and beneficial to the community. So unless we try, we really don't know whether some of these techniques are really going to help us. So you will find over the next year or two, you'll see me trying to troubleshoot using my own creativity, my own perception, my own gut instincts. You often find I follow my own gut instincts, and I will listen very much, and I will do the research and understand what the industry is teaching us and what was good practice, because of course that's really important. But also I'll be open-minded to know when I need to kind of rethink the problem and try to come with a fresh perspective. And what's lovely about being someone new in the hobby, as I'm relatively new, is I don't have the conditioning of the past in me. I have a free spirit that I can actually say, that feels right, that doesn't feel right to me, I'm going to just try and work through this. And be patient with me, because I don't mean to be disobedient to anyone, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm very much an open agent, and I give everyone else the chance to be open with their feelings and to express their views, even if I don't necessarily agree. I think it's really important that good mentoring means that you don't fall out when you disagree. So you might find the apprentice may not agree with the person that's training, and that can work very positively actually, because a mentor can also learn from the newness of the person coming in, different perspective, different freshness. So I think that's a really healthy environment to be in. Okay, so let's also look at some other things here about what we think makes good mentoring. Well, I think a good mentor really does care. So they really do care about you, they care about your ball pythons, they care about your goals, enough that they want to be there for you when when you're needed. A good mentor is also a good example. So when they teach us a principle, they actually practice it themselves. So it's really important to be consistent as a mentor. You can't be mentoring someone and then doing the complete opposite yourself. So I think it's really important to be a really important positive role model. I think a good mentor shares experience rather than provides advice. And there is a subtle difference there. If you share your experiences, this is what I'm doing. On this channel, I'm always sharing behavioural experiences and trying to draw some interest from the community of what's going on. Now my battery is flashing low, so it could die on me pretty soon, so we'll slide through here really quickly. Provides quality feedback, is open and active listeners, so an important part of mentoring is listening. They extend their network. Now Richard is a classic example. He's brought us into his channel, he shares his network of friends that can also help us and guide us. They are real, they are human, they make mistakes themselves, and they're transparent with their own mistakes and share what they learn. They support us in our weaknesses, and they help turn our weaknesses into strengths. It's good mentoring. There has to be trust in that relationship. So you can speak openly, you can disagree, but don't fall out. And a new, fresh approach often helps in that relationship. You get to know each other personally, and you develop an eternal and long-lasting friendship. So it's not just about the snakes, it's also about the friendship. And then the best mentoring is often done one-to-one rather than on a one-to-group basis. So most mentors that are really good are selfless people that serve, and they share what you know without any conditions attached. And I think that's a really important point. Okay, so what we'll do in part 2, because I know my battery is about to go, is we will share a couple of examples of good mentoring, and the one I once wanted to share with you was Justin Kabelka and Miguel, because I think they're an excellent example. We'll just go as long as the battery goes. If the battery does go and we do come at the end here, I will be posting another video on